Batman Arkham City, the second game in Rocksteady's Arkham trilogy, and in the eyes of many, including myself, the best superhero game of all time. But why? What makes this sequel such a fascinating game? Why is it better than its predecessor or successor? Well, it's not really a simple answer. Before we get into it though, this video will contain spoilers as it's sorta meant as a retrospective rather than a review. Also, if you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. I upload video essays and analysis videos on all kinds of video games, so if that interests you, hit subscribe. To explain why City is so good, we actually have to go back to Arkham Asylum. Asylum in itself is a phenomenal game put together by a talented crew at Rocksteady Studios and had a story spearheaded by Paul Dini, who worked on Batman the Animated Series. Now, jumping ahead to 2009, many of the lead game directors and designers at Rocksteady were still in their positions come the time of Arkham City's development, including Paul Dini at the helm for the game's story. Everyone knew what they were doing. They knew what they had previously created and knew how and what to expand on in the sequel. And everything was beefed up. The story was amazing, the gameplay was evolved, the world was immersive. Rocksteady really didn't stumble with this one. Let's begin with the story. The story is written in a way that if you've never played Arkham Asylum, or if you're marathoning these games in a week like I did earlier this year, you can still enjoy it. There's two plots going on at once, sort of. One plot is that Hugo Strange and Quincy Sharp have reconstructed old Gotham into a massive prison in order to kill all the prisoners within it using a procedure they call Protocol 10. Also known as blowing the city up. The second plot is a race against time as the Joker has transfused his Titan-containing blood into Batman's veins, killing him slowly. Both of these stories are perfectly balanced over the course of the game, and it doesn't feel like one plot takes up more time than the other. Now, about how I said you can jump into Arkham City without prior Asylum knowledge and can still appreciate it, the idea of Arkham City is a completely new idea. There's a reference to it in Asylum, but one, it's an Easter egg, and two, people didn't find it until after Arkham City released. And for the Joker's blood thing, if you played Asylum and know what Titan is, you'll appreciate the continuity between the two games, but if you don't know what Titan is, I don't really think it's that hard to understand that the Joker's blood probably isn't something you want in your system. The story also features plenty of characters, classic villains like the Joker, Mr. Freeze, Harley Quinn, the Penguin, as well as lesser known characters like the aforementioned Hugo Strange, Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, and there's even more cameos in the side missions. There's Hush, Bane, Poison Ivy, Calendar Man. Arkham City made sure to cover every base possible. The ending twist of Joker using Clayface to appear healthier definitely worked in my opinion. I was legitimately taken by surprise when it happened. I've heard people don't like the Catwoman sections, but I never really saw a problem with them, and if anything, it made Arkham City feel more alive because we're seeing someone else's point of view, and not just anyone's point of view, but one of the criminals living in Arkham City. The main theme the game portrays feels right at home with other Batman media, which what I gathered from playing the game was that Batman can't save everyone. This is emphasized by Protocol 10 as well as all the deaths of the major characters across the story. I love it. All in all, Arkham City's story is very well written, it's very balanced, and it features plenty of faces for Batman fans to get excited to see. But what's better than the story is the gameplay. Arkham City's core gameplay remains pretty unchanged from Asylum and rather adds on to the pre-existing formula than changing certain mechanics. Rocksteady threw in more tools for Batman to use across his journey, all of them seeing plenty of use throughout the entire story. Not one gadget ever felt underutilized, everyone got their spotlight. Combat got some new additions. You can now do a beatdown on any enemy in the game, you know, the cape swish with the yeah, that one. Explosive gel can now be used during combat, and Batman will slam enemies into walls, which is more just a contextual visual enhancement rather than an actual factor in gameplay, but it's still cool. During stealth sections, you can now break through wood panels or glass to get the jump on enemies, but that's kinda it from what I remember. Gliding got a whole revamp, making it an extremely fun way to traverse around the city. You can now grapple up to a spot, jump off, dive bomb down, utilizing a swooping maneuver to carry the momentum that you have from point A to point B. Arkham City also expanded upon the skills that we saw in Asylum, adding more skills with more tiers of upgrades, as well as upgrades for Catwoman too. I think the best way to illustrate how much bigger and better the gameplay is in Arkham City compared to Arkham Asylum is the fight with Mr. Freeze. In this fight, every time you find a way to catch Mr. Freeze off guard and get him vulnerable to a beatdown attack, Mr. Freeze will actually adapt to your techniques, meaning you can't use the same move twice. You actually have to use multiple, not just gadgets, but gameplay mechanics to take him down, like stealth. I believe this is one of the best boss fights in gaming ever, and if you played this section, you'll know what I mean. Arkham City's gameplay is a massive step up from Asylum's, and it shows in just almost every aspect of the game. Now, finally, let's discuss the city of Arkham City itself. First off, Arkham City is 5 times bigger than the Asylum Island. That's a lot of space to fill with content, and Rocksteady delivered. The story visits all kinds of locations around Old Gotham, the GCPD, the Iceberg Lounge, the Steel Mill, and plenty of others. There's also places to visit that house the side missions and feature appearances from other characters I mentioned previously, like Bane and Hush. There's obviously all the Riddler trophies to collect, as well as random crimes to stop around the city. Arkham City is alive and beautifully crafted to display that Batman is a determined, unstoppable force. I also just want to talk about some unrelated, uncategorized things, like the promotional material. One of the images can be seen in the thumbnail, but there's plenty of these. I love this Joker one, and the iconic Batman wiping blood off his face one, that one's awesome. Even Traveler's Tales parodied this marketing campaign for the release of LEGO Batman 2, and honestly, these go just as hard. Also, this game got a DLC titled Harley Quinn's Revenge, which in my opinion was way too short and not as fun as the main game, but it is still cool to see what happens after the events of the main game. Batman Arkham City will always be my favorite in the series, and a lot of people could say the same. But what about Asylum, the game that started it all? Well, I guess I'll just have to talk about it another time. Until then, everybody.